Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Spirit Matters, your daily Bhakti Center podcast, where we talk about spiritual subject matters, specifically the ancient yogic text of the Bhagavad Gita. And we learn how to apply these ancient spiritual principles to our everyday lives. We are here with our live studio audience from all over the United States, all over the world. We have Leeleshwari in Brazil. And with my co-host, Achita Gopi. How are you this morning, Achita?
Feeling sheltered, feeling blessed. We are capable today. We're doing it.
Mm, we're doing it. I'm also feeling sheltered and blessed. I woke up early. Waking up early is the answer. I feel great. Whenever I wake up like past 7:30 or like 8, it's just,
Is it
kapha body. Like I just feel,
I you know, I feel like also there is something to be said for not just waking up early, but
yes,
you also like gave spiritual discourses like first thing in the morning. And I think
true. Waking up early and engaging in spiritual discourse first thing. It's
it like
the
it's like PB&J.
it's a thing. It's a thing. Okay, we are reading from Bhagavad Gita, chapter 2, verse 39 is where we left off. So would you
Yes,
like to take us away, Achyuta?
sure. Krishna is continuing to speak to Arjuna. Thus far, I have described this knowledge to you through analytical study. Now listen as I explain it in terms of working without fruitive results. O son of Pritha, when you act in such knowledge, you can free yourself from the bondage of works. In this endeavor, there is no loss or diminution, and a little advancement on this path can protect one from the most dangerous type of fear.
Hmm.
I love that verse.
I
I,
also love that verse.
that verse is super comforting.
Hmm.
That verse is like the epitome of don't try to get everything perfect because living entities are not perfect. And
Hmm.
Krishna fully understands that. He's like,
Hmm.
just do the best you can. Literally, just do the best you can.
Hmm.
And he's saying, just doing the best you can is enough.
Hmm. I love this verse so much too because I remember I read the Bhagavad Gita for the first time when I was 21 and it went over my head. It was a lot. I read it without
It
proper
is a
guidance.
lot, though.
I read it without proper guidance, and I read Srila Prabhupada's Bhagavad Gita. I,
Yeah, but like 21 is the age of excess. And you're like, what am
exactly.
I supposed to do with all this excess when they're telling me that I should not
Yeah, and I was
feel
reading all the
extra?
purports at 21, and I was like, this is a lot. This is intense. But then I remember one of the first times when I started rereading it. I was reading in a community group here at the Bhakti Center, and they were reading that small blue book version by Rancher Prime.
Hmm.
And I love he does this thing where like he like sections off verses into subsections, and he titles like the little subsection. And for this verse and the few verses that come after, the title of this is "There is no spiritual failure." And I remember that hit me so hard. And he goes on to explain, about this verse. That hit me so hard because I think in daily life, we're so caught up with like success, and we live in this dualistic way of being of like, if I don't succeed or if I don't measure up to whatever standards, society standards, my family standards, like whatever, if I don't measure up, then that means I'm a failure. And Krishna is so merciful, that he's saying like, actually, like anything you do on this spiritual path counts. And not only does it count, but it's not going to go away. And that is so comforting to me because I think sometimes we hold ourselves to very like high not standards isn't the word that I'm trying to think of, but like we hold ourselves
Expectations.
expectations. We hold ourselves to very high expectations. And Krishna's just like, I will take you as you are. And it's so powerful.
And this whole, even us holding ourselves to these high expectations is something to understand that Krishna is trying to make Arjuna break out of. all of the expectations. He's like, do it for the action. Stop being so attached to the results, even the ones that we expect of ourselves. It's like, what do you do when life is not going your way? Are
Mm,
you able to continue on? Are you able to keep that determination? Are you able to still be determined? Do you have this persistence and perseverance for life? Are we doing life always for some particular purpose?
mm,
And it's such a good thing to ask ourselves about every single area of our lives. Why am I doing this? And if it's always like, well, I'm doing this to get this, I'm doing this just
mm,
to get this, that's not going to last very long. It can only last as long as the thing or the person is giving you what you desire. And I feel like I've done so many videos on it, and reels, and talking, and all this stuff about, I love Bhagavad Gita and I love Krishna because literally he's like, you cannot fail.
mm,
There is, in this endeavor, there's no loss, no diminution. You literally cannot fail. And the
mm,
next thing that people usually ask me is like, well, then why would I engage in bhakti yoga? And I'm like, the only reason you were engaging in bhakti yoga is because you had some idea of succeeding or beating everybody else at something? Like, that's not what we should have been doing this for. The main goal is to get out of this bondage that we are caught up in, the eternal rat race where we're constantly trying to one up somebody else. It is tiring and frustrating and depressing, and it is all of the things that bondage is. It literally has us bound up and uncomfortable, and Krishna is constantly, he's like, let it go, let it go.
mm. I love that description that you gave, that it's frustrating and depressing. It makes us, it brings out the worst of us, actually, you know. And I think that, in the purport, Srila Prabhupada says something really beautiful. He says 1% done in Krishna consciousness bears permanent results, so that the next beginning is from the point of 2%. Whereas in material activity, without 100% success, there is no profit. And I think it's just something really important to remember and to remind ourselves, because I think that since we're in this material world and we're caught in duality, and we're socialized in X, Y, and Z way, it's like a programming in our mind. Once I have the house, I'm going to be happy. Once I have the perfect marriage, I'm going to be happy. Once I have that job that everyone else has, I'm going to be happy. Once everyone knows who I am on the gram, I'm going to be happy. It's just like it's not like that, because if you bring everything down, if you strip everything down, we're not taking that stuff with us. I'm not taking my Instagram followers to my next life. I'm not taking my richness or my, whatever to my next life. All of that stuff is going to come to an end, actually. And I think that because people become so absorbed in the material body and mind, right? This is one of the kleshas of ignorance, abhinaveshita, I think it's what it is, right? And
Which
it's like
klesha, just
full,
klesha is like it's a misery basically.
yes, a misery. And this one is like the last one. It's like complete full clinging and absorption to the body.
Mm.
And it's like when we get into that state, it's like we're so afraid of losing things. It's like the more that you have, the more that you're in the more that you're in anxiety of losing those things. I was giving this class this morning, and I won't go into it so much, but it was really, when I got the verses, I was like, yes, I love talking about this topic. And the topic was specifically about like how being materially impoverished um, uh, sets a better playing field for Krishna consciousness, as opposed to what's it called? As opposed to having material wealth, right? And so something that I was saying in the class, and this is what our acharyas are saying, the saints in our lineage and like this, and it's really interesting because obviously this is one point in the Bhagavatam, but then there's other points where it's saying, even in Bhagavad Gita, it's saying that if you do like, if you're successful in your yogic practices, you'll come back in your next birth in some like rich aristocratic family like this. But really what it is what is my intention behind all those things? Because the material energy, like riches and wealth and cars and houses and money and gals and guy and whatever, it's very intoxicating. Like when I get one thing, I'm like, ooh, that was fun. I want something else. And I want the next iPhone and the next iPhone. And when's the next iPhone coming out? No, I need that iPhone,
No,
and
they're always coming out with another one.
I'm getting the new iPhone.
Ah,
um, and so it's just like we become intoxicated with this material energy. And so I think the point is not dualistic thinking of like, oh, being rich and having money is bad and being poor is good, and therefore I should be poor so that Krishna can be in my life. It's like, no, not exactly. It's more like, what is getting in the way of my heart to have a relationship with Krishna? And so if all that material well-being is getting in the way because my value system is connected, like attached to that stuff, then yeah, it's bad. And so the point being made is that like if you're materially impoverished, you're not like there's nothing for you to attach to. It's just you, and you're more desperate in a sense to take shelter of Krishna. And so I think it's just such an interesting point because we become, I think I'll end with this because I'm ranting. It's really important to analyze ourselves and really ask ourselves, how attached are we? Like, how attached am I to all these things and all these people and all these iPhones and computers,
and I think that it is where we left off on Friday was being honest with ourselves, getting to know who we are, what stage we're at, and then being honest with ourselves. So, someone with a lot of wealth, we cannot look at them and say, oh, well, they're not materially impoverished. They're not really ready to be a Krishna conscious devotee. So that's fine. And really, we do that just to make ourselves feel better. But
Yeah.
likewise, we can't look at, because we are just constantly judging everyone and putting the label on who can and cannot be Krishna conscious. So just as we'll look at somebody who is wealthy and say, oh, well, I don't, whatever. They've totally got more cars than me, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Maybe they shouldn't be a devotee because I just don't think they're renounced enough.
they're
But
they're not sincere enough.
right. But we'll also look at people who are down and out, completely materially impoverished, and decide that they can't be Krishna conscious either. And what I love is Srila Prabhupada saying, like, even if you give 1%, your spiritual advancement will then begin at the next 2%. Or even depending upon how Krishna reciprocates, 100%. Who knows? And I think that that is really important for any of us who have been in bhakti and are looking at new people coming into bhakti. We have no idea inside whether they are new or whether they have been doing this way longer than us. We don't know where their starting point is. And I think it's so important for us to even look at our own starting points. And sometimes we think, well, my trajectory doesn't look like somebody else's trajectory where they read, say, Nectar of Instruction, and then they read Bhagavad Gita, and then they had an epiphany and an aha moment, and then they started reading Bhagavatam, and then they started reading this one, and then they were fine. And mine looks a little bit different. Like, what does that mean for me? It means you're fine. It means that your path is your path. It means that there are going to be some things that you got that they didn't. And there are going to be some things that they got that now you're coming to the realization of. And bhakti, the Vedas, spiritualism does not go like this. It is a series of circles and cycles, and where you are does not determine, like, oh, wait, this person's higher and I'm over here. It doesn't have to be that way. And that is such a big thing of letting go of those expectations. Let go of that straightforward trajectory because it is not.
I remember when I moved into the ashram at the Bhakti Center, and even before that, like when I started meeting the devotees here and coming to groups and kirtans and etc. I remember that I would always feel this almost like anger and guilt and frustration
Hmm.
around like the feeling was like, wow, I wasted so much time. I met the devotees when I was 21 and it took me 5 years to take things seriously. And I always like made myself feel lesser than, like, oh, I'm not this and I'm not that. And and I just like would get so in my head about it. And it took me a while to get to a place, because then it went to the opposite end of like I moved into the ashram and I was like pure devotee syndrome. I am a devotional robot and I do everything perfect and I arrive to Mangal Arti at the right time and know all the prayers and it's like, my doty's perfect, everything's perfect. And then it was a journey. It was a journey for me to really understand what Krishna is trying to say to us, that like you're on your path and you're where you're meant to be. And that's it's such a positive message, actually, because in spiritual life, like you were saying, it's like we're not comparing ourselves to other people. We're not like, oh, I'm gonna be more spiritual than you, watch me, I'm like my tilak straight, or like,
Yeah.
or like my dhoti is like this. It's like, actually, our unique relationship with Krishna is that it's individual, it's unique, and it's going to look very different than someone else. And so just because you came into, yoga or the path of bhakti at 20 or 30 or 40 or 50 or 60, it doesn't, none of that matters. But I do see that. I saw it in myself and I also see it with other people too. It's like, oh, I just started out, now I'm like 40 something, like I don't know. And it's like we should really be encouraging people to understand that their life trajectory was as it was supposed to happen for you to come to Krishna. When I think back about my stuff, I'm like, no, those 5 years, like I needed to go through that stuff. I needed to go through those trials and tribulations, because it really made my hankering for Krishna more real, as opposed to like just like, yeah, I want spirituality in my life, and they're just giving me the Bhagavad Gita, so I guess I'm devotee now.
Yeah. And I think that that also is the basis. There is no loss, no diminution. You're not late. You have not shown up late to the party. You've shown up exactly when Krishna had it planned out for you to show up. It is okay to take your time. It is not a race. It is okay to even have your reservations. It is advised, even, to really check in with yourself and say, do I have reservations about this process? This is why Krishna is constantly asking Arjuna, are your doubts satisfied? Have we cleared them up? Because if not, just say the word. Krishna is not somewhere saying, you give me all your blind acceptance, or else I smite you and you are off the beaten path. He's saying, take a second, check in. Are the doubts still there? And if the doubts are still there, ask the questions. Have the doubts, go through it. But just know that you are, and I hate to sound new agey about it, but you are exactly as you are meant to be. And I love that even Radhanath Swami, who I admire so much, took his time surrendering to the process of bhakti yoga as an institution. In his heart, he had figured, okay, here I am. This path of mysticism and spiritual devotion is for me. And then when it came to the institution, he kind of hung back for a bit. Well, I'm going to see how it goes. And not everybody was happy with him for it. But he was going to authentically really check in with himself. And if he had reservations, he was going to follow them. Srila Prabhupada met his own guru and had no intentions of accepting him as a guru at that point. Like he just kind of felt like, I have so many other things that I have to do. Surrender can take a second. even for the purest of souls. And so I think that it's not even to say, okay, well, it takes a second for the purest of souls. So what to speak of me? No, no, that is the blueprint. Surrender takes a second. It's not to say, oh, like what to speak of me. No, 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 no. We don't have to diminish ourselves to say, oh, well, then, yeah, definitely should. No, it's okay if that's the blueprint. It's also okay if there are things that just call to your soul immediately. And it's okay if not 100% of the things call to your soul immediately. It's like 50% of this makes sense. And now I have to look at the other 50%. And that's okay.
I love what you're saying because I think that a lot of the times people get when people join any type of yoga and bhakti yoga, any type of philosophical system, they get very enthusiastic, for lack of a better word. They get really excited. They get really like, wow, this is it, this is it. I got it. And I really appreciate you bringing up Radhanath Swami and that kind of almost pause and really, really seeing if, how does this all fit together and what are my thoughts on it and etc. You know, in Vedic times, actually not only in Vedic times, like in the old times, let's use that generalization. Because I think it happens still after Vedic times. Like the proper way of coming to Guru was that you and Guru would live together for a year, and the Guru would examine you, and you would examine the Guru, and you would see if it was a proper fit. And I think that that's really important. It's like, yeah, you need a year to see if this relationship is going to work out. And I feel like there's so much, going back to the beginning, what we were talking about, expectations, there's so much expectations that we place on ourselves, both spiritually and materially and etc., that it feels like we're rushing to everything. It's like, I have to learn all the things. I have to do all the things. I have to answer all the emails. I have to answer all the texts. I have to do it all. And it's just like, no, you're allowed to pause and assess and reassess and pause again and keep assessing. I'm very anti-culture of immediacy. And I feel like that's very much like the times that we live in. It's like, I'm sending you a text and therefore you have to respond to me right away. And if you don't respond to me right away, that must mean that you're not my friend and you hate me, and I'm just like, no, I'm just going to take my time, and I'm going to sit and think about things like, do I really want to leave my apartment? I don't know. Let me think about this.
I
Do I
am
really want to talk? Do I really want to give class? I don't know. Let me see if I really want to do it. Do I really want to go here or do that or etc.? And I literally will be the person that takes a day to respond. And then I usually do get maybe 2 days. I usually do get, why aren't you responding? And I'll just be like, I'm taking my time.
I'm weighing my options.
I'm weighing my options. I'm listening to my heart, and when
Yeah,
my heart tells me what to do, I'll let you know.
I will say that that is one thing that makes people very upset with me. I don't like immediate responses. And the worst thing you could do is be like, look, why aren't you responding? Because then I will never respond. Like, it pushes the time back. As a matter of principle, my insides begin to tell me, are they rushing you? Are you rushing me? No, 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 no. You see, this does not happen. And then I dig my heels in, and then next thing you know, it's been a week or something, and then I'm like, oh yeah, no, I got back to it. But I am very much like that, and I actually do believe that that is a really good thing for relationships. All relationships.
100%.
If you are feeling upset, if you are feeling intense, if you are take an hour, take 2 hours before you send that angry email. Take a second and get in there with your thoughts. And after that hour or 2 hours, if you're like, and thinking about this just made me more angry and more upset and more hurt. There's the key. You're hurt.
Mm,
Express that.
mm, mm. I
Express
think it's,
why you're hurting.
yeah. And I think it's so important because that expression of why you're hurting is vulnerability. And so often things don't move on or move forward in relationships and conflicts and work stuff, whatever it is, they don't move forward because both people are in a protective stance, in a defensive stance. And really the vulnerable thing is like, actually, like you're saying, I'm hurt, you know? And I think that a lot of the times, due to our expectations, due to our dualistic thinking, due to our fear of, not succeeding and etc., we end up in situations that we don't want to be in. And if I guess the message is like, if you pause and really think about things and really dig deep and see like, wait, where is this actually coming from? Or like, do I actually even want to be there? Or like, I don't know. Like we ended the last podcast, it's like, yeah, you're coming from a place more of honesty. And I'll just end with this because we are running fresh out of time. This is also true to the reason why a lot of people like they get peeved with me. This weekend, I canceled plans with every single person I had plans with. Every single person that I had plans with, I canceled them. And the reason was because I sat and I thought, I didn't get good sleep. I'm not feeling well. I'm kind of like frustrated and just want to be on the couch and be horizontal because I got like 4 hours of sleep. I don't want to be around people. I want to be by myself. And that's like what felt really honest to me. And, thankfully I've built relationships with people that they know my personality and they get me and whatever. But I think that's a little tongue-in-cheek story, but I think the horizontal clear, exactly, Kimberly, exactly. Yes. But I think just being honest where you're at, what you can handle, what your real feelings are around the situation, that's spiritual, folks. That's spiritual. Like that's spiritual growth and advancement and progress, not tying myself to material expectations of like, I have to do this and I have to show up this way and I have to be like this and I have to do that, Whereas if I really dig deep into my heart and become vulnerable with myself, like that's the spiritual progress that Krishna is talking about here.
This is the crux of the entire Bhagavad Gita. Arjuna took a pause and said, I don't think I want to be here. And Krishna said, well, bro, let's really get into it. And let's like figure out what you're like, let's figure out what you're feeling. He's like, well, I know what I'm feeling. I'm feeling like I don't want to be here. And he's like, hold on now. Let's go a little bit deeper. Let's go under the surface of the I just don't feel like being here and figure out why. What is going on with you? What are you feeling in your body? What reaction is your body having? Okay, and now that we've got that, let's go deeper. Now, what reaction are you having in your mind? Now, what reaction are you having in your heart? And then Krishna's like, and now I'm going to tell you what's happening with your soul. And Arjuna, he constantly kind of flicks back and forth like, yeah, I get what you're saying about your soul, but we are having a body crisis right now. Like, I'm still on the battlefield. See, there's an army over there, and you want me to kill millions of people. Personally, me personally, you want me to look them in the eyes and rip their lives from them. And I'm going to need you to tell me how this is supposed to work out in your divine plan. Help me make it make sense. And so I think that if the Bhagavad Gita, the entire crux of the Bhagavad Gita is about stopping, figuring it out, really going in depth, and then going in depth again, why do we think that life won't be like that? We're kind of fooling ourselves into thinking life's going to be easier than the Bhagavad Gita. It's not
Nope,
going to.
it's not. We are running fresh out of time. We are gonna take it away to Kimberly for our takeaways. And if you have any takeaways in the chat, please write them and we'll read them aloud. Kimberly, what you got for us today?
Thank you. There's so many good takeaways today. So doing the best we can is enough. There's no spiritual failure. And then asking ourselves if there's anything blocking our hearts from having a relationship with Krishna. And everyone's path is unique. Letting go of expectations of a straightforward trajectory, because to surrender takes a second.
That was great. To surrender takes a second. That's very true. It takes a moment. In the chat, I really like Baldevi said something. She said, I am such a loner too. I prefer to work on/for myself and Krishna. And then she goes on, that is why I am here with this satsang. And I think she meant like this digital satsang. A live group is too hard for me to endure easily. And I really love that, Baldevi, so much because I'm the same way. I'm just like, how is this live group of people going to be? Like, I need to really think about my emotional situation right now and if I can handle this. So I love it. Thank you so much. Achuta, what are you walking away with today?
Same. I have been relieving myself of the obligation to have to be around people when I just don't have it. And I've stopped looking for excuses to why it's okay that I just don't have it. Like, we're always looking like, well, if if I had like a diagnosed chronic illness, that would give me the excuse to say, I just don't have the mental capacity to deal with this today. And instead, I've just been like, I'm not gonna look for excuses to why I don't have the mental capacity. I don't have it today. I don't have it. And that's fine. I just don't, it's more than enough for me to be honest with myself and know that I don't have it. Also, one thing that Kimberly said, to surrender takes a second. And I really mean that in every single sense of the word. Sometimes it takes a second, which means it takes longer than a second. It takes a pause. But surrender also can take just one moment. So on both sides of the spectrum, the answer is yes.
I love that so much. Thank you for bringing those different sides to surrender, because it's true. And Kimberly wrote in the chat that this was very helpful. I feel so much obligation to visit my family. And I feel you, Kimberly, because I also sometimes deal with that like Latin guilt that's just been like, oh, it's been like put into my brain since childhood. And what I'm walking away with today is like really taking the pause to be honest with yourself and to ask yourself if you have the capacity to do it, if it's going to be good for you in your spiritual life. Is it good for me in my relationship with Krishna? I really think that placing my relationship with Krishna as the most important thing in my life, if I really genuinely do that, then it will start to shift my expectations. And what it will start to shift my sense of obligations around like, I have to do this, I have to, whatever it is, friends and family and etc. So yeah, I'm walking away with that like if Krishna is really at the center, and if I'm really trying to surrender to Krishna, it will naturally start to shift things. Okay, folks, we are fresh out of time. Thank you so much for being here today. It was such a nice talk. Thank you to our live studio audience and all your beautiful points in the chat. Thank you, Achyuta. We will be here tomorrow. It took me a second. Tomorrow, we will be here tomorrow at 9 a.m. And then we'll be here this week and next week. And the next week we go to India, Achyuta, which is crazy that it's already next week.
It's gonna be
insane.
an adventure. I'm like, my mind is still a little bit like blown by the whole thing, but
Me too.
I think it's gonna be magical. I've already decided that it's gonna be.
I've also decided it's gonna be magical. It already feels magical. Lane and Pasha, we're gonna see you there in India, and everyone else, come with us next year. Come with us next year.
I'll
We're
also
gonna
see Lileshwari when we get to Vrindavan.
Lileshwari is gonna be in Vrindavan.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Well, very nice. Okay, folks. Well, we hope to see you all in Vrindavan one day. For all of you out there listening, have a beautiful rest of your day. Have a happy Monday, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye, folks.